Recording.
Hey, all you wagon rollers. Welcome to the latest edition of the Empty Wagon Fantasy Football Podcast. It's your co-host, as always, Pat Kern. Joining with me, as always, are the two best fantasy football minds around. You know them as Brad the Dad and Josh the Boss. Twitter handles here for myself is at HattrickPat37. For Brad, it's going to be at Tack Jones, and for Josh, it's going to be at FF Josh Hughes. And if you like what you hear on the show and want more hot takes, want more reports and rumors, follow us on Twitter at Empty Wagon FF. Find us on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, we're all over the place. Thanks to our awesome partner, Blue Spade Productions, for spearheading our social media presence, getting our name out there, and sharing our passion project online. Follow them on Twitter at Blue Spade Pro. Primarily a music production business, but they are also amazing advertisers and great behind-the-scenes work. Before we get this wagon rolling, I just want to say to all of you that follow us, the Empty Wagon Fantasy Football Podcast, and own an Android device, do us a favor and go to the Google Play Store and download the Podcast Republic app. It's a fantastic app that allows you to get all your favorite podcasts directly on your Android device. Again, that's Podcast Republic app. I use this app, and I absolutely love it. I can search all my podcasts that I want to listen to, select them as favorites, and then I just have them as one click away. Make sure to set Empty Wagon Fantasy Football Podcast as a favorite so you don't miss any episodes or any hot takes from the guys here at Empty Wagon. And again, this app is called Podcast Republic, and it's available on your Android device. And now, finally, handing the reins of this wagon over to the two best fantasy football minds around. All the way from Scottsburg, Indiana, Brad the Dad, and all the way from the chair next to mine is Josh the Boss. Take it away, Brad.
What's going on, guys? What's going on? It's been a long morning. Just a long morning. I know, Josh, you're ready to get this thing started.
Dude, so long. Well, we started 45 minutes ago, and we're just now getting started, so it's awesome.
Technical difficulties happen.
The curse of the
all
mic.
Right. How's everybody's week going? I know Pat's excited. Justified won the Triple Crown. I know he's probably going to get in this later.
Yes, I will.
It's pretty good, you know. My daughter's here. I'm excited about that, so we'll get this thing knocked out, and I'll go hang out with her.
All right, yep.
Good over there, Brad.
Here, but I'm great. Busy.
Brad
Son's
the Dad
not
being
sick
Brad
anymore.
the Dad.
Yep, son's not sick, so we're good to go.
Awesome. I'm having a great week as well. We're going to go ahead and roll into our R's and R's, our reports and rumors. First up on the board is, so sad. Julian Edelman, PEDs, 4-game suspension. This is baloney, fake news. I don't know. But go ahead. You guys can talk about it.
That's very real. And, the old Patriot motto, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. So I guess that's how you handle your business over there in New England.
No
yeah,
problem.
I mean, it's a big fantasy hit, though. I mean, we were talking Julian Edelman PPR leagues is probably top 15, top 20 wide receiver. I mean, you weren't, Josh, but
No, I was.
he probably was gonna be at the end of the year.
No, I
and
was.
Now,
I had him 14.
Yeah, PPR format,
Yeah.
absolutely.
He's
so now we're talking 4 weeks.
He's going to drop significantly now. I mean, he might even get cut.
He ain't getting
No,
cut.
I'm just kidding. But I am interested to see if this is going to help Jordan Matthews. And I think Rex Burkhead probably will be much more valuable through those first 4 weeks for sure.
Or James White.
No, not James White.
Really? You don't think so?
I don't really
Use him as a wide receiver?
I think that they like Burkhead. It was pretty obvious last year. They split him out a lot whenever he was healthy. I think he's going to be the guy that's going to benefit the most from this whole thing.
Yeah, I think the big difference between this and the Mark Ingram thing is that when Julian Edelman comes back week 5, is that you can pencil him right back into your starting lineup. I don't think he's going to fall off. Him and Brady have that rapport. You don't have to worry about anybody taking his job. What do you think, Pat?
I think Rob Gronkowski's value is going to shoot through the roof. And, I do think James White's going to be that PPR guy and kind of make those slot receptions or definitely out of the backfield. Be interesting to see how this impacts Sony Michel in his rookie year. Maybe he gets the call a little earlier than they intended. So it'd be interesting to see that. And also if they maybe go out and grab another wide receiver. I know Eric Decker's out there, and he's kind of a slot guy. So be interesting.
All right, last question about this. Are you guys going to be targeting Julian Edelman into drafts? I mean, depending if draft price is 8th round, 7th, 8th round?
Well, we know he will. I mean, I don't think that's a question.
No, not early, but sure. 8th round, if he's still there, absolutely.
Yeah, 8th round because, like you said, you're going to get at least wide receiver 2 numbers out of him the rest of the season. So as long as the rest of my roster is pretty shored up, and then he's going to be my wide receiver 3, I mean, yeah, as long as I don't need him to start those first 4 weeks, absolutely I'll target him because he's going to have that upside.
Yep. Only thing that scares me is that every year it seems like he misses a couple games for injury reasons or whatever, and now we're already losing 4 off the bat. So if he loses that other 1 or 2 or 3 games, it's really going to hurt his value a lot.
Yeah, and their bye isn't in the first 4 weeks either. So, I mean, you're going to lose him for 5 weeks. That's a pretty tough thing to chew on. But, I mean, it's worked before with some guys. I mean, I had Brady that year that he was suspended the first 4 games, and it panned out for the most part. The rest of my team didn't, but that guy did.
All right. Yep. I think that kind of beats the dead horse.
Did you want to talk about David Johnson now?
He doesn't think David Johnson's a big deal. So.
Oh, you talking about David Johnson getting an extension? Is that what you guys are talking about?
No, that's
Nope,
Duke
not that
Johnson.
part.
No, David Johnson, they're talking about extending him as well, too. But okay.
No, David Johnson, he's hurt. He's hurt so bad they don't even want to tell people why. So
I think they're just monitoring his reps because the injury's been in quotations. Nothing's came out about him being injured. He's just not on the practice field as much. I think they're just watching his reps, and he doesn't need the work that maybe some of these other guys need.
actually,
Is what I'm hoping. This is hopeful thinking. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, I shared a report that says he was injured on Twitter, so I'm pretty confident that he is.
And injured was in quotations.
Sounds like Brad the Dad is in a little bit of denial over there.
Oh, yeah, big time denial.
Because
I love David Johnson.
All right, so let's move on to Duke Johnson. Got paid.
Yes, he did.
What was it, $15 million for 3 years?
50.
What? No, 15.
Oh.
15.
Yeah.
15. No, he's
I
not.
was going to say, hey, you're not that good.
That's quarterback numbers.
Yes. $15 million, 3 years, 7.7 of that guaranteed. It's pretty good.
I don't understand Cleveland at all.
Dude, that's what I'm saying. To me, it means that in the short term, I'm not really sure what to make of this backfield. I think maybe Chubb is going to be the odd man out right now until he gets a little bit more set in the offense. But Carlos Hyde probably will not be on the roster next year.
Well, he has to be. I'm pretty sure his deal doesn't get any better next year. But, I mean, Cleveland had a bunch of money to burn. They were well under the cap last year. I mean, they took Brock Osweiler's contract on last year because they had to make the cap ceiling. You have to have a cap floor, and they had to meet the cap floor, so they had to get their cap number up high. They took Brock Osweiler's triple contract. So maybe they're just trying to spend some of this money because they have a lot of money laying around in the cap room.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, it like I said, I think Chubb will be the odd man out right now, and then we'll see what happens the year after. But I'm just going to be paying attention because I know they're going to want to get Chubb involved a little bit later with the draft capital that they paid for him. But right now, Duke Johnson and Carlos Hyde seem to be the ones who are going to dominate that backfield.
Yeah, and you can't even pencil Duke Johnson in as the wide receiver they said last year. They said last year he was going to be like a wide receiver. But now with Jarvis Landry there in the middle, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other R's and R's you get over there? Or pretty much cover it for this week. All right. Quick shout out. Congratulations to the NBA champions, Golden State Warriors. Swept the Cavs in the finals. Finals MVP goes to Kevin Durant. Surprise, surprise. Big congrats, though, to the Stanley Cup champs, Washington Capitals. Congratulations to Alexander Ovechkin and all your Washington Capitals fans. Ovechkin got the Conn Smythe Award, which for everyone else that doesn't watch hockey, which is probably a lot of you, Conn Smythe Award's kind of similar to the Finals MVP or the Super Bowl MVP, but they actually call it MVP of the playoffs, which is, I think, pretty awesome because it takes into account what they do all playoff long and not just in the finals. And then finally, Justify wins the Triple Crown. Wow, you guys look so excited.
Well, it just happened 3 years ago, so it's not a big deal anymore.
Oh, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, considering it's the 13th time in a century, it's a pretty big deal. It's a hard feat to accomplish. Bob Baffert is the only trainer to win it twice. And Mike Smith, at 52 years old, finally gets his Triple Crown aboard Justify.
Yeah, I read a report today that it's a $75 million horse. The horse is worth $75 million now.
That's so dumb. It's a horse.
It's a nice investment.
Yes, it is.
You guys want to invest in some horses with me?
No, I think I'll pass. Gronkowski did win it, surprise.
Gronkowski came in second. He came from last and made the final rush to second. I think if they had a few more furloughs to go, I think Gronkowski actually would beat just fine. But that's enough horse racing talk. Finally, we'll get back into football and talk about what we're going to talk about today. So these next 8 episodes are all going to be about breaking down your divisions. And we're going to start with the AFC. We're going to start with the AFC North. This division is always a bruiser division, as I call it. These teams absolutely hate each other, and they just love to beat up on each other. They know each other very well. So all the games that they play are very interesting to watch because you never know who's going to stab who. Anyway, moving on, we'll get into our first team. We'll start with the premier team out of this division with all your fantasy impact, and it's going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. Josh, take it away with the analysis of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
All right, the Steelers. So I had the opportunity to do 2 teams this week. Some of these were actually pretty easy kills because you have 2 of the best fantasy players on the same team. So we'll start with Ben Roethlisberger. He's got an ADP of 118. So he's going in the 9th or 10th round in 12-team leagues, and I actually think he's got a lot of high upside. I know Brad isn't as high on him as I am, but I went back and I looked at him, and he actually, the big thing that people always say is he can't play on the road games, but only half of his road games were actually bad. That's when he got less than 15 points. So I know what you're thinking, like, oh, no, well, 15 points isn't great, but it doesn't tank your week either. So he had some road games where he scored over 25 points. So it wasn't that bad. But I would still, if you're really worried about him, I would pair him with a guy like Mahomes or Prescott, someone you can get a little bit later. But my big thing is I think the addition of Mason Rudolph is going to push Big Ben to perform a little bit better. And I'd like to see him. He's going to finish as a top 10 quarterback, I think. It's very possible for him to do that. But at least top 12, he will be a QB1 like he was last year. And there's nothing, that I'm really worried about. My projections for him is I think he's going to have a B-plus grade. And like I said, I gave him the plus because I think it's going to be upside. 4,300 yards is what I'm projecting. 29 TDs, 13 touchdowns, and 264 points. I really like the value of Big Ben this year. Anything you want to add about that?
I just don't like Big Ben. I mean, you talked about his home and road splits. This isn't just last year. This has been his whole career, home and road splits, and that's why I don't like Big Ben.
Yeah, I think you covered it all. I just like to add the fact that you talked about how Pittsburgh has 2 great fantasy assets, and they do. And then you talked about Ben Roethlisberger.
He's going to get into the rest.
I know. It was just an interesting
not...
sequence. All right, let's get into the real fantasy impacts here, which you're going to hit on next year.
Yeah, so the next 2 are no-brainers. I mean, Le'Veon Bell, he's got an ADP of 2 overall right now because a lot of people are viewing him as Gurley's interchangeable. But to me, I disagree because Gurley's had the one huge year. He had a decent rookie season. He fell off the year after, but a lot of that can be attributed to the Jeff Fisher experiment, which was awful. The thing that I'm thinking, though, is this year is the second year of this offense with Sean McVay. They're going to be able to spread the ball around a little bit more. I do not see Gurley repeating that performance that he had last year. It's just not possible. So to me, it makes more sense for you to go ahead and take Le'Veon Bell, number 1 overall if you have that pick. And if he falls to you anywhere after that, I mean, he has to be the number 1 option for you. I give him an A-plus grade. I'm banking on him getting 1,350 yards, 8 touchdowns. And I looked at this, and I was kind of surprised to see that, but I'm still projecting 80 catches, 720 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So I was kind of surprised. I was like, well, he did that last year, but I went back and I looked at it. Yeah, I'm still feel pretty confident that he's going to get 80 catches. I understand that the offensive coordinator is different this year, but not that different. So A-plus grade for Le'Veon Bell. And then Antonio Brown he's got an ADP of 5. He's finished a top 3 receiver the past 4 years. Not 1 year, past 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. He's been a top 3 receiver. His QB is the same. His head coach is the same. Running back's the same. AB is as consistent as it can be. It's a no-brainer. His ADP is right where it should be. And if the David Johnson news really is bad, like if he really is injured, he could slip up in there and take him 4 overall in PPR leagues. A lot of people are worried about, Juju taking some of his work, but I did some analysis on that, and I'm not that concerned about it. And he's had over 100 receptions every year since 2013. Don't be concerned about AB. 110 catches, 1,500 yards, 10 touchdowns, 320 fantasy points. I love Antonio Brown. These two guys are easily going to be someone that you're going to target, and you're going to feel great about it. Anything you guys want to add about those?
So what was Le'Veon Bell's total points you said?
I'm projecting 347 points for him.
All right, just to put that in perspective for last year, Todd Gurley was hands down the best running back last year, and he only had 319 points. You were projecting almost 30 points more for Le'Veon Bell this year.
That's correct.
Would put him at the number 1 fantasy player over quarterbacks and everything.
That's correct.
Those are some pretty high expectations.
Yeah, but when you look at
not saying he can't do it, but
when you look at the numbers, it makes all the sense in the world. And I think that he's going to have more receiving yards this year than he had last year. So I feel good about it.
I'm not saying you're wrong. Those are pretty high expectations.
Just going back to Todd Gurley mentioned real quick, and you love hating on head coaches. Jeff Fisher. And just wait until we get into the 2 Ohio teams we're going to talk about in this division.
Well, Jeff Fisher's a bad coach. And I'll get into Juju real quick. Juju has an ADP of 43. He's the 20th wide receiver taken off the board, and that's just too high for him. This is his sophomore season. And on top of that, he can't even keep his bike. So I don't really trust Juju very much if he can't watch his own bicycle. At this ADP, I'd feel more comfortable with a guy like Golden Tate, who's actually going after him. Golden Tate was at wide receiver 1 last year in PPR. Wide receiver 1. He finished as 11 overall. So I'd take him. I might even take a stab at Jarvis Landry over Juju at this point. So I don't like I don't like the price of Jarvis Landry. I'm sorry. You can sit there and say that all you want to, but I don't like Juju's price. It's too high for me. And to give you guys a little bit of context of that, he does have a lot of upside, especially with Martavis out of the way, but Big Ben hasn't produced 2 1,000-yard receivers since 2011. 2011.
Yeah, and I do agree with you with Juju. Juju's big games last year was when Antonio Brown missed or was hobbled with injury. And so, I mean, a lot of that's true. Juju's big games were when Antonio Brown. If Antonio Brown misses games, though, Juju's probably fired up as a wide receiver 1.
Absolutely, but I looked at the numbers, and 2 of his games, so he had 917 yards, he had over 900 yards, and 2 of his games accounted for 1/3 of that production. So there's 16 in total, just to give you guys a little bit of idea of that, and he had over 300 yards in 2 of those games. I don't see that. A 97-yard catch, that's just not going to be something that he can repeat very easily.
I started in that week. It was awesome.
Yeah, I give him he isn't in the conversation for me as far as where he's going. I give him a B. I'm projecting 53 catches, 863 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 175 fantasy points in PPR. So you can say whatever you want about the guy, but he's just I don't see him breaking that 1,000-yard plateau again. And the last one is Jesse James / Vance McDonald. There's not really a lot to talk about here. They haven't had a top 10 wide receiver since 2012, which was the same year that they didn't have a receiver with over 1,000 yards. So that was just a struggling year for their offense in general. The ADP for McDonald is 159, and he's actually going above Jesse James. But Jesse James actually had better fantasy numbers last year. These guys may be a streamer at best, but to me they're not really draftable. I'd give them combined grade of D-. Just gross.
I agree. I mean, especially with the numbers you're projecting for Le'Veon Bell, not bringing it back to that, but it's going to be really hard for a tight end to be fantasy relevant. You're pretty much hoping he falls in the end zone. And we know Jesse James is not good at keeping the ball when he falls in the end zone.
That's sick burn.
All right, so that's it for me on the Steelers. Anything you guys want to add? No?
No, I think that was really good. We're not going to cover kickers because nobody cares about kickers. And defenses, I don't have the time or patience to look into some of these defenses that much. Steelers defense does scare me a little bit.
I didn't really worry about defenses. I'm more of a streamer guy when it comes to defenses because if you're not getting one of the top 2 or 3, you're going to end up streaming most of the year anyway. So
And even if you do get top ones, you're probably still playing matchups.
Yeah, so anyway, if you guys want, we'll go ahead and move on, and we'll get right into the Believeland Browns.
Oh, wow, you already want to go there, huh? All right.
Yeah, let's read that novel that you wrote, Pat.
All right, well, I won't read it verbatim because I've been told not to. But maybe I'll post it on our website, make it a blog post.
I mean, it is a great article. I'll admit, he wrote a great paper.
All right, let's get into the Believeland Browns. That's right, folks. Cleveland Browns, 0-16 and 1-15, which, if my math serves me right, that's 1-31 for the past 2 years. And we talked about Marvin Lewis keeping his job last episode, but what kind of voodoo magic is Hugh Jackson doing over there in Cleveland to keep his? That's what I want to know, because that's incredible. But you know what? He's still there. Maybe players and coaches alike don't want to go to Cleveland. Maybe the narrative will change this year, because they actually have something called upside this year. That's with the rookie signings. That's with the players they brought in. And despite Cleveland's best efforts to stay in the cellar, they might be climbing out of it this year. They added Jarvis Landry, Carlos Hyde, Tyrod Taylor, and the big rookie names of Baker Mayfield, Denzel Ward, and Nick Chubb. And also Josh Gordon. You can count that as an addition because I think he's only played 2 seasons since he's been in the NFL. But I don't think anyone is really cheering against Cleveland. Most division foes would like to keep kicking them when they're down. But I think the rest of the NFL is ready to see a good Browns team and maybe contend for a playoff spot. Biggest news out of Cleveland recently, other than the Duke Johnson contract, HBO show Hard Knocks featuring the Browns this preseason. How about that? Good things already happened to this revamped team. And HBO said this in regards to choosing the Browns for their 2018 rendition of the show. Hard Knocks has been said to make teams play harder in the preseason and minicamps because the cameras are on them. Some would say it would make teams look better than they actually are. But the truest test for us as a show is if we can make the Browns actually look good, then you know we're providing great entertainment.
Wow.
Now, the Browns do have some tough schedules coming up in 2018. Their schedule, based off of 2017 numbers, their collective win percentage of opponents is .523, which is tied 5th for hardest schedule.
That's great news.
Not great news for the
Browns. It's not good.
But despite Hugh Jackson, I still think the Browns are going to have a better year and possibly go 4-12. And that's pretty good improvement considering the past 2 years. Wouldn't you guys agree?
Yeah, but I want to know fantasy impacts here. I don't care real football.
Well,
I mean, Tom Landry didn't have a winning season until a 7th season in the NFL. And I don't know if you ever heard of Tom Landry. He won some Super Bowls in his day. So let's get to some fantasy information here, Pat.
Are you really saying Hugh Jackson is Tom Landry? All right, anyway. QBs.
No.
We'll start with QBs.
Not at all.
So Baker Mayfield, entering his rookie season, drafted first overall, and would appear that he is the future franchise quarterback for the Browns. What can we expect from him this year, though? Hugh Jackson has already stated in May that he's going with Tyrod Taylor, and he has Mayfield taking reps with the second team. How wonderful. And if the Browns continue to do what they always do, the Mayfield won't see any time early this season, and it won't be until probably half point late season that Mayfield gets under center. So at this point in the preseason and his career, I'll give him a fantasy grade of C-. I don't think he's going to get on the field early in this year. But for dynasty leagues, I'd say he's worth a decent draft pick. Anything to add to Baker?
No.
I think you hit it on the head. He probably isn't going to see a lot of the field this year.
All right, well, moving on to Tyrod Taylor, who is the starter first season with the Browns, 8th in the league. And Tyrod actually proved himself a pretty serviceable starter in Buffalo and can also hurt a defense with his mobility. Perhaps a good call by Rex Ryan, and his only good call in Buffalo was making Tyrod Taylor the starter when he was there in his brief stint in Buffalo. And the offseason move kind of threw some people because everyone thought they would address this position in the upcoming draft. And yes, even though the Browns did something smart, they addressed it in both free agency and also in the draft by taking Baker Mayfield and also adding Tyrod Taylor. The good news here is the Browns actually gave him some weapons to work with. They added Carlos Hyde. They drafted Nick Chubb. They extended Duke Johnson. They brought in Jarvis Landry. Josh Gordon doesn't look like he's going to be smoking this year. And then Corey Coleman, we're still waiting on Corey Coleman. So, with that, Tyrod Taylor, preseason, QB grade right now is a B. Projections are 59% completion percentage with 2,906 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 9 picks. And those legs will add about 400 yards, probably give you 3 touchdowns. Anything to add on Tyrod Taylor?
I think that's the big deal is the legs, right? So that's where you're going to get your value from Tyrod is if he gets those 400 yards, which I would love it if he did that. That's what actually brings him into the conversation of starting him some weeks. So he's going to be the second QB on your team. I don't think he's going to be the first one, but I think I would be happy to have a guy who can run for a couple yards. And if Josh Gordon is smoking, let me say that's a good-looking man who's smoking weed because he is in shape this year, guys. He looks like an animal.
He has NFL blitz muscles.
Yeah. One thing I do want to add about Tyrod, I saw this morning on Twitter when I woke up, was that so Tom Brady, career interception percentage, he's 4th. Aaron Rodgers is 2. You want to guess who number 1 is?
Brett Favre.
Tyrod Taylor. No, it's actually like a good thing. Interception percentage is like low. Tyrod Taylor is career-wise least amount of interceptions.
He's very careful with the ball.
So, I mean, last year that's what killed Cleveland was turnovers and stuff. So if he can take care of the ball, that'll keep Baker off the field and keep him on the field and keep them in games. They had a good defense last year. So I like Tyrod this year.
I think one of the things that's bad about that, though, is it kind of ended up hurting him a little bit and the Buffalo Bills last year is because he was so careful with the ball. He doesn't take a lot of risks.
But on Buffalo, who do you want to throw the ball, like, for a risk? You throwing it up to any of those wide receivers they had in there with a risk? Zay Jones?
Dude, I'd throw it to Charles Clay every time.
Yeah, that's what he did, and that's why he didn't throw interceptions.
Didn't he have Kelvin Benjamin for a little bit?
When he wasn't hurt and blowing his knee up and limping around.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into these juicy wide receivers.
Juicy wide receivers. All right. Cleveland Brown wide receiver core coming at you. We'll start with Josh Gordon. Maybe he's not going to smoke this year, folks. Maybe he'll play a full season. But he is a playmaker. He is naturally gifted. He has explosive attributes on the field. We all know what he's capable off the field. But a healthy and focused, ready Josh Gordon will be fun to watch this year. This is the football equivalent to a risk-reward par 4. You can either go for it and take him in the 4th and 5th round and might pay off, or it can be a total bust. Or you can just take him somewhere around 8th or 7th round and get exactly what you would get out of an 8th or 7th round wide receiver. To add more to this pot, Gordon is unrestricted free agent following 2018 season, which gives him more incentive to stay out of trouble, healthy, and put up numbers in a big way to seek a very lucrative deal in the offseason. But you have to go back to 2013, 5 years ago, to the last time Gordon played a full schedule, which he did great in. However, that's a long gap. You only get older, and now there's more workload, which could bring injuries into play. We don't know. He is built like an absolute house, so maybe injuries won't be a problem, but you can't put muscles on tendons and ligaments. They brought in Taylor, so he actually has a decent quarterback. Both quarterbacks have been praising his talents in camp, which is not surprising. And I think there's an incentive for Josh Gordon to be Josh Gordon this year, especially with that contract. So his grade for me is a B+ this year. I see him getting 100 targets for 68 receptions, over 1,000 yards, and 6 touchdowns, averaging about 15 yards per reception. Take it away.
Only thing I want to say is Josh Gordon's only 27. He's not that old when you actually look at it. I know he's played a long time, but he came in the league pretty young. So he's only 27 with all the missed time. He doesn't have all the hits that most of these wide receivers do at the age of 27, which could actually work in his advantage. Well, not on the field. Go ahead, Josh.
So they have so many options, right? So that's the thing that kind of worries me about Cleveland, and both of their receivers are pretty much going back-to-back in a lot of drafts. The issue with that is, okay, great, but we just talked about how Tyrod Taylor's numbers are going to be probably about 2,900 yards, right? So between Josh Gordon, Jarvis Landry, Carlos Hyde, Duke Johnson, David Njoku, 2,900 yards is not a lot. And if you got a guy like Jarvis Landry who's going to fill that Charles Clay role, which we're assuming he will, right? And then Corey Coleman, we don't even know what's happening with that guy, but he might be their wide receiver 3. If not, it could be Antonio Callaway. That's what worries me, honestly, is I love the upside of Josh Gordon. He's finished as a wide receiver number 1 overall in fantasy before. That was the last time he played a full season. The guy is incredibly talented. I'm never going to argue that. But with their quarterback, if it was Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers throwing them balls out there, oh, yeah, sure. I think that's a steal for draft price. But with Tyrod Taylor and Baker Mayfield, it's concerning.
All right. Josh the Boss not buying into the Cleveland upside here. We'll get into Jarvis Landry, first season with Cleveland, 5th in the league. We all know him as a PPR machine. Just agreed on a huge contract extension with Cleveland, and rightfully so, as he's proven himself a reliable pass catcher, excellent in the slot, and PPR formats. He's been close to a wide receiver 1, pretty much a wide receiver 2, I'd say, or flex in deeper leagues. He stays out of trouble. He's not very injury prone, and if the Browns continue to play from behind, which they probably will, then he'll be looking to catch a lot of passes. You don't think they're going to play from behind?
No, I absolutely think they'll play from behind.
All right. I'm giving him a B+, same as Josh Gordon. I think he's going to see 150 targets for 85 receptions, 950 yards, 5 touchdowns, 11 yards per reception. What do you guys think about Jarvis Landry in the Cleveland Browns uniform?
So I think you kind of said it earlier. Him and Josh Gordon have very similar ADPs. So when it comes to draft time, you're going to have to make a decision on which one you want and which one you're going to take. And in a PPR, obviously, Jarvis Landry has that upside of catches and all that. But if you go into standard, I'm not touching Jarvis Landry with a 10-foot pole because I am nervous about touchdowns. And I'm thinking you guys can't hear me right now.
No, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. But, yeah, so I'm just worried about Jarvis Landry, just upside. So you just got to make a decision on which one you want. And I think in a PPR, I'm taking Jarvis Landry over Josh Gordon just because I know he'll be there. He's not one mistake off the field away from getting suspended for the rest of his life, too, which kind of helps out a lot.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like if I'm going to have to pick one or the other, I'm gonna take kind of the more sure thing. He's not going to have the upside that Gordon has. But Jarvis Landry, if I'm looking for a solid wide receiver 2, I'm definitely going to take Landry over Gordon, which is, just me kind of being more confident in my decision. Josh Gordon's going to be the guy. He's going to make you or break you with that ADP because if he messes up, your whole wide receiver 2 situation is shot. Or your wide receiver, yeah. So I don't like that at all. I can't take the risk on a guy who's done that. Now, he could blow up, and, he has that wide receiver 1 potential, like we said, but Jarvis Landry to me is the far more better option. So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I could see both of them ending up ranked almost the same wide receiver wise, but Josh Gordon will have those big 25-point weeks, but then he might have 2 points the next week, where Jarvis Landry will probably be a steady 12, 15 points a week.
Yep.
All right, final receiver we're going to talk about for Cleveland is Corey Coleman, 15th overall selection in 2016 draft. Still waiting Corey Coleman to just do something. Break out, be a star, be a wide receiver 1 or 2, or at this point even a 3, because right now Antonio Callaway is pushing for that wide receiver 3 in Cleveland Browns camp. So honestly, he could be traded. I wouldn't doubt it. Cleveland's not been quiet about putting him on the trade block. They are trying to get rid of him like the plague, and I don't blame them. 2018 grade is just an F. Just don't go with Corey Coleman. If he gets traded, maybe he goes somewhere else and breaks out and has a good year, and I hope he does. But if he's on Cleveland, he's not going to. Not even going to read his projections. Yeah. Don't draft Corey Coleman. Anything you guys want to add?
Yeah, well, the problem with Corey Coleman is he breaks his hand a lot, and if you're a wide receiver, the biggest thing you need is your hands. So I think we'll just leave that at that.
Yeah, I don't know, Pat, if you were saying break on purpose so many times, but yeah, that's pretty much what it is with Corey Coleman. He just fell out of favor with the coaching staff.
I wasn't, but it's good. I'll take credit like I was. Tight end, David Njoku, second season in the league with the Browns. Had a pretty decent rookie year, has a lot of upside. He's just a physical freak. He does a lot of things well in the passing game, not much of a blocker, which is beneficial to the fantasy value because you don't think he's going to get hurt doing that or have an increased workload with that. He's just going to be on the field catching footballs. in theory. He split snaps with some tight ends in 2017 as a rookie, but those tight ends are gone, and they're replaced by Darren Fells, who is a blocking tight end and is Darren Fells. So if he stays healthy and performs well, he could start leaping into that tier of tight end 1, I think. Maybe that's a breakout projection, but right now he's definitely a tight end 2, and 2018 grade is a B. I think he'll see 60 targets, 44 receptions for 515 yards with 5 touchdowns. Maybe he'll do better than that. Only time will tell. Anything to add on David Njoku?
Not really.
All right.
I think Jarvis Landry kills him.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, Jarvis Landry and Duke Johnson, definitely. Probably not going to help his cause. But there's reason to have upside on this guy. All right, running backs. Carlos Hyde, first season in Cleveland, 5th in the league. Hyde's the only two-way running back, if you really want to call him that, which I don't really think he is, but he's definitely more of a two-way running back than the other 2 guys. It's more of a running back by committee, more of a tandem, running back tandem here in Cleveland, as Duke Johnson will help Hyde, definitely a third down back, catching passes. And for fantasy purposes, that isn't great for Hyde because he's going to be he's going to get touches stolen from Duke Johnson. But he had decent numbers last year in San Francisco. Could have another year of reliable performance in 2018. We'll give him a C+ grade. I think you'll see 108 carries for 500 yards, 3 touchdowns. And you'll add 20 receptions to that for 130 yards and 1 touchdown. Carlos Hyde, what do you guys have to say about him?
I was super excited when he first got signed by Cleveland, but then with the draft picks and re-signing Duke Johnson, it's just crowded, yucky backfield. I don't know what to expect. I was really, like I said, was super high and I fell low. If I can get him late in drafts, maybe take a flyer, but I'm still nervous about doing it.
Yep.
Because he could be out halfway through the season.
Right now he's getting drafted as the running back 32 with an ADP of 72 overall. So to me, I love that. And these stats that we're getting are from fantasydata.com, but I love the value of that. As the 32 overall running back, you're taking guys like Tariq Cohen and Marlon Mack at this point. So if I'm looking at that, I'm either, I think that's pretty good value for him. But like you said, Duke Johnson hurts his value a lot. To me, Duke Johnson is probably the most appealing person in this backfield from a PPR standpoint.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. But yeah, Carlos Hyde, like you said, his draft value, ADP, is definitely there. And talking about Duke Johnson, we'll get into him. 4th season with Cleveland and in the league. And as we just mentioned, PPR running back, should make him an attractive pick. Probably the most attractive pick out of Cleveland here in your fantasy leagues.
So attractive. He's so handsome.
You can still expect him to get those looks out of the backfield, but with Hyde there, he's definitely going to be taking some of those numbers away. And with the addition of Landry, possible emergence of Njoku, that's where his numbers may see a dip. But I still think, especially with that contract that we already talked about, that Cleveland just gave him, still think he's going to be putting up those numbers. 2018 grade is B. Might adjust that to a B+, especially with the PPR format. He's getting paid like a top 10 running back. Whether or not he'll perform like one remains to be seen. I think he'll see 68 carries for 270 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns, 68 targets for 50 receptions, 470 yards, and 3 catching touchdowns. Duke Johnson, we kind of already talked about. Anything you guys want to add?
I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, I like his PPR value a lot. Standard, I don't want anything to do with Duke Johnson, but PPR, yeah, man. I mean, you're going to get him really late, so he's actually going way after Carlos Hyde, and I think in a PPR format, his numbers could be relatively similar as far as scoring goes. So that's how I feel about him. All right.
And finally, we're just going to talk about Nick Chubb because they did draft him 35 overall in this year's past draft. Nick Chubb-alicious. Don't think he's going to do much in this crowded depth chart with Cleveland. I'll give him a 2018 grade, a D. I don't think he's going to see a lot of touches. He's a great talent in college, and he could break out later in his career. He might even break out this year, but with Hyde, Johnson, the additions of Landry and Njoku, I wouldn't draft Nick Chubb.
Yeah, he's a long-term play. So, all right.
And before we hand it over to Brad the Dad for Cincinnati's analysis, I just want to, we forgot to mention, and I feel really bad about this, but Johnny Football Watch in the CFL, Tiger Cats, played his final preseason game. He threw a touchdown pass, folks, 88 yards. I think it was 12 for 20, and threw a touchdown pass. So there you go. Brad, you can talk about Johnny and then get into Cincinnati.
He's over here doing the
Money Manziel sign, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, that's all you need to say. Just the Money Manziel, baby. He's back.
He is not.
All right. So let's get into the Cincinnati Bengals here, all right? I got super excited to do this, and then I started looking at the players and remembering who I had to talk about.
You're awful.
But the thing is, like, you look at their end-of-year numbers, not a lot of them are bad. It's just they're not what you want.
They're not good.
Week to week. Yeah, they're not good week to week. It's like they somehow put numbers up. So we'll get it started where the NFL cares the most about, and that's your quarterback, right? And this is where I think the whole offense falls apart, is with Andy Dalton. So Andy Dalton, he's always a QB2, it seems like. He's been a QB1 one time in his whole career. It was 2013.
It was clearly a mistake.
So other than that, yeah.
That's what we call a fluke.
Yeah. Well, fluke's the most common fish.
All right. Just get into it.
All right. So, it's always been a top 20. It was QB 17 last year with 210 points. And I don't know if people remember, he had negative points week 1. It was awesome. I started him. Terrible idea. He may look appealing because week 1 he gets the Colts. So he might come out there week 1 and have that great week 1 season. But then 3 of his next 6 matchups are against top 12 or top 10 defense against quarterback. So the red rifle, I don't know. ADP has him as the 27th quarterback taken.
What a steal.
27. So if you're in 2 quarterback leagues, just as you say his name. But
I bet Baker is going above him.
He might. There's a lot of Sooners fans out there.
All right.
He's down the bottom, but so I don't like him. My grade is a D. You can stream him week to week. Like I said, week 1 against the Colts, maybe throw him out there, see what happens. But then drop him. Like as soon as that game starts, cutting.
As soon as the game.
And pick somebody up off the waiver wire, okay? I got him at yards. I got him at about 3,500 yards. 23 touchdowns because he does have some weapons out there. But 15 interceptions because he's not really good with the ball. Like he doesn't take care of the ball. He's going to he might fall in the end zone one time. It's 210 points as a quarterback, which puts him right in his mediocre QB2 range. Yeah, anything you guys want to add about Andy Dalton?
No.
Don't sound so excited next time you're talking about him. But no, I think we can move on to the other positions. That's all we have to say about Andy Dalton.
So let's move on to the one position that I am kind of interested this year in there is Joe Mixon at the running back, right? We got Joe Mixon. His ADP has him, depending on if you're in 12 or 10, a late round, early third pick, which it's a little high, but last year he was a third round pick as well, coming out of his rookie year, and he didn't do anything for the first half of the year. So this year, Jeremy Hill's gone, frees up some carries. I know Gio's still there, but Gio's going to be your third down passing roll back. I'm not worried about Gio stealing between the tackles runs. That's going to be Joe Mixon. And like I said, I don't like Andy Dalton. I don't like the way he takes care of the ball. So Joe Mixon should be there to pick it up. I got the offensive line. They addressed that in the draft. They went out and took a center. Offensive line was Football Outsiders had them at the bottom half in ranking, in running ball. Are you guys out?
In rank and running the ball? Yeah, okay.
I know, rank and running the ball.
No, listen to
my rednecks.
Do anything.
No. Yep. But he could have top 10 running back upside this year. And we got Mark Ingram hurt, who was a top 10 injured, not injured, suspended. There we go. So that frees up some people in the top. And then you didn't talk about it, but you tweeted it out, Josh. Kareem Hunt's punching people in the face.
Yes.
So he may be seeing some time off during the season. Joe Mixon's great. I have him at a B+. I got him about 800 rushing yards, almost 900 rushing yards, 6 rushing touchdowns, 25 receptions for about 200 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. It puts him at 187 points. If you compare that to last year, that puts him at about running back 8. What do you guys want to say about Joe Mixon?
Gross.
Gross.
Super gross.
You're not high on Joe Mixon?
He got plenty of opportunities last year, and I just didn't see any.
Didn't.
Yes, he did. When you look at his attempts and everything like that, it just wasn't. To me, it was like, okay, I would have liked to see more out of Joe Mixon, honestly. Towards the end of the season, they wanted to feature him, and they did, and he just didn't deliver with it. I know we can talk about how bad the offensive line was, but to me, the guy he's not very impressive. I'm sorry, I didn't like what I saw. I mean, and
he also likes to punch people in the face, too.
Yeah, I was going to say, Joe Mixon's no saint himself, so he got in trouble in college for that. So, I don't know. To me, the guy isn't very appealing, and especially in PPR when we already talked about Gio getting the passing down work. Yeah, I'm not really high on Joe Mixon. I'm going to let someone else take him and tank their season like it did for some people last year who were taking him in the third round.
I agree with you.
I just think he fits the third round more this year than last year.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brad. I think there's upside. I think there's reason to be a little higher on Joe Mixon. Which apparently Josh doesn't, but you know what? Whatever.
Makes me want to throw up.
You can throw it in his face when he does great this year.
Yeah, do it. Go ahead. We'll bet on it.
All right, let's get in. You guys want to move on? Probably the most fantasy relevant player on the Bengals is A.J. Green, right?
Better than my next team.
Every year he's a top 10 wide receiver. Every year. Last year he had a terrible year. But his ADP has him as the 8th wide receiver taken.
I think a lot of that's Andy Dalton.
It is a lot of Andy Dalton, but even then he's hyper-targeted. And every year he finishes above most wide receivers. He was the, I think, 5th wide receiver through his career every season. And sometimes top 2, top 3. I just don't understand why people are waiting so late. You're talking about the beginning of the third round, you get A.J. Green. I'm loving that.
Didn't a lot of his value come from?
I get a wide receiver one.
Didn't a lot of his value come from a few games though? He had like a few big games, and then he had a few duds, right? Like a Julio Jones type situation.
Yeah,
yes, he did.
But if I can get that in the third round, like if you go running back, wide receiver, the first 2 picks, and in the third round I get A.J. Green.
Yeah, third round.
Past how many years has been a first round pick?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to fall to you in the third round anyway, though. Just off of name value, he's going to be a guy who you're going to have to take as your wide receiver one still, or if you go wide receiver, yeah, you can get A.J. Green in the second. But I don't know. I don't like the inconsistency. Whenever I'm drafting players for my team, I love consistency. That's why I don't think I've ever had any shares in Julio Jones. And I feel kind of pretty similar about A.J. Green. He's a little bit more consistent, obviously, but he's getting older, and I don't trust. Hey, Benny, what's up, dude?
All right, so we're going to pick up here with A.J. Green again. Brad the Dad had to go be Brad the Dad and do dad things. Anyway, what we're talking about, A.J. Green, we pretty much already talked about him and his numbers and where we can expect to get him. I agree with Brad. I mean, if you can get him in a third round, I don't think, like you said, he's going to fall the third round, just on namesake alone. But that would be a great find in the third round.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, we'll talk about the other receivers here. Brandon LaFell and John Ross. Brad just wants to keep this short and sweet because they're both undrafted according to the most recent ADP. Take a flyer on him, and if you take a flyer, you might as well choose Ross because he's a speedy receiver who might get you some numbers.
He's so fast. He's so fast.
That's about all we can really say about John Ross. And Brandon LaFell, I don't know how old he is, but man, he plays old.
I feel like he's been in the league for like 1 billion years.
That's what I'm telling you.
Yeah. I mean, but he's around. I mean,
he puts up some numbers. I mean, they ain't great.
I mean, when Andy Dalton's your quarterback.
Yeah, that's true. So maybe a streamer option, late round at best. And we're going to give him a D+, a boomer bust grade here for LaFell and Ross. I don't think we have anything to add to those two because they haven't really added anything to the league.
Wow.
Giovanni Bernard, ADP in PPR is currently in round 11. You're still in third down, passing down, running back in Cincy. You will have some flex appeal or late round running back if you went with the 0 RB draft. Also a great handcuff to Joe Mixon because the Bengals have not been afraid to give him a workload when the lead back goes down. So Brad gave Giovanni Bernard a C, which I think is pretty fitting. Expect him to have 348 rush yards for 2 touchdowns, 27 receptions for 237 yards, and maybe 1 reception touchdown. And points here, we're looking at 73.
Gross.
Not a fan of Giovanni Bernard?
No, not anymore. I mean, I used to like Gio, and he would give you great value, but now I'm just not sold on him.
It's because Joe Mixon's there, right?
No, it's because the head coach, Marvin Lewis.
And there's those Ohio head coaches calling
and their quarterback and everything. Outside of A.J. Green and John Ross, because he's so fast, I just don't. The next guy you're about to talk about, I used to love getting him.
Used to?
I used to before he started having injuries. So go ahead and
talk about Tyler Eifert. You want to talk about the injury-prone Tyler Eifert? When healthy, he's been a great tight end option with tight end touchdown upside. ADP has him in the 11th round. His 12th tight end off the board. He's not a tight end 1. Or he's not a tight end he'll be targeting high, obviously, with injury risk. And there's plenty more other great tight ends out there that you would target before Tyler Eifert. But if he stays healthy, he can put up some numbers. But that if he stays healthy thing is more of when will he get hurt.
Yeah, that's a huge if for a guy who is going as the 12th tight end overall. Yeah, you can get it, but if you're banking on him being your tight end 1, you're going to be in a bad way if you take him too early. I don't like that at all. He's a guy to me who I'm going to maybe take a chance on him late if he's there. But is my tight end 1? Absolutely not. No way. If the rest of my team's not filled out, Tyler Eifert to me is a guy who's undraftable.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Well, maybe not so much undraftable, but late rounds.
Yeah.
Late rounds. And projected 50 receptions for 577 yards. And five touchdowns. Yeah, seems a little high. But
for a guy who's never on the field,
yeah. But projected points here is 88. So, not great. And then Tyler Kroft. The only reason we're going to talk about Tyler Kroft is because when Tyler Eifert gets hurt, he will be the tight end in Cincinnati. Currently, he's going undrafted, and owners streaming tight ends can keep their eyes on him when putting in waiver claims. Pratt's going to give him a D-, but I see that grade going up when Tyler Eifert gets hurt.
I was going to say D- might be too high. I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, based on Eifert's health, expect 14 receptions for 149 yards and maybe 1 reception touchdown. So again, Tyler Kroft's relevance depends on Tyler Eifert's health, which has been terrible. Which is too bad because Tyler Eifert's just a great tight end when he is healthy.
Yeah, he really is, and he's got an opportunity to do good things if he's healthy, but he's just never going to be a guy who's consistently healthy.
So let's round out the AFC North with the Baltimore Ravens, and Josh, this is your other team that you did the analysis on, and so just AFC North-wise, I think Cincinnati and Cleveland will stay. The bottom 2, I think Baltimore and Pittsburgh will ultimately be the 1-2. Still think Pittsburgh will win the division. I think Baltimore will maybe push for a wild card spot.
Man, I'll start with the quarterback, and you guys were talking about how Andy Dalton and Tyrod Taylor are bad. Well, Flacco is actually going below them in drafts, ADP.
That's actually really surprising.
Yeah, he's bad. He's real bad. He hasn't had a great year in quite some time. So the projections that I have for Flacco are more hopeful than anything, I would think. So 3,900 yards, 20 touchdowns, high interceptions lately. So he used to be a little bit more careful with the ball, but he hasn't had great receiver. Well, he didn't have great receivers last year, and this year's retread of receivers isn't that much better. So 14 interceptions for me. He does get about 50 rushing yards a year, so that's what I have him at. But at 13 points per game and 213 total points at the end of the season, for me, Flacco is. I'm not even going to touch him. I don't even look to stream Flacco. That's how I feel about Flacco. Like when Ben Roethlisberger is the best quarterback in your division, and you're talking, and like Brad thinks that he might not even finish as a QB1. This division's quarterback's awful.
I would call it the division of the quarterback. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh my, the division of the worst quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, anything is possible because clearly the AFC North quarterbacks let you know that every season. But here's a question for you. Would you take Flacco over Dalton?
Oh, do I have to? Do I have to take either one?
Yes. Out of those two, who would you take?
Oh, gross. If I had to take one, I think I'd still take the Red Rifle.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's how much I don't believe in Flacco.
With the Super Bowl ring.
Yeah, well, Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl ring, so that doesn't mean that they're too hard to come by when you have defenses like they had.
All right, well, I guess that's true. So you're saying Tyrod Taylor's the second quarterback in this division?
Yeah, Tyrod Taylor for me, absolutely. I take him over Flacco. Yeah, it's just I've never really cared for him. I don't think that he has the upside of someone that is going to make your team. And the money that they're paying him, he's kind of handcuffed the rest of the roster in a way they're not going to be successful. So I don't
know. They brought in Hayden Hurst and Willie Snead.
Yeah, that 25-year-old rookie tight end should really.
Michael Crabtree.
I'll get to these guys in just a moment. There's two kind of bright spots. To me, Alex Collins was a huge bright spot. So he's, like I've talked about this before, I think he's either going to be the running back one or he's going to get cut. And there's no in between because Baltimore, the way that they run with their running backs, man, like you don't know. But if he's a starter, I've got him at 1,134 yards. I don't think he's going to have such a high yards per carry this year like he did last year because he was killing it in some games. And then others, he would run the ball 20 times and he would get you 60 yards. So I'm putting him down to 4.2, which is still above 4 yards a carry. I think that's still pretty good. 6 rushing touchdowns. I'm going to say that he's going to get 22 catches for 150 yards. He's not going to catch any receiving touchdowns. I think he's going to get you about 11.5 points per game. So we're still talking RB2 numbers here. And total points 186. I actually really like Alex Collins. I'm just got to be careful about the value of Alex Collins and what we're seeing out of preseason. So whenever we get in the preseason and we start getting into the more intense camps, pay attention to what they're saying about Alex Collins. You can't buy into all the hype that coaches are talking about, getting guys more involved and everything like that. But pay attention.
I certainly bought into that Trey Burton hype.
Well, that's different because I love him. So I believe in that. But anyway, that's a different story. So, yeah, I would be careful with him. The other two guys who are kind of nipping at the heels are Buck Allen and Kenny Dix. They've liked Kenneth Dixon for years now. He's had injury concerns and suspension issues. Last year he was suspended and injured. Kenneth Dixon, though, is the guy who could supplant Alex Collins later on in the year. They kept him on the roster through all this stuff. I mean, he's still in his rookie contract, but they still like the guy. And if they've kept him around after the issues with injuries and trouble that he's been in, that says a lot to me. I think that he could actually steal some work from Alex Collins. I think he's going to actually be utilized in the passing game a little bit more than him. But I'm still not – he's going to be the guy who I'm the lowest on in this backfield. You still got Buck Allen there, and Buck Allen's going to get the passing down work. He's going to be the guy – I've got 48 catches and 300 yards for him. He's going to be a guy you're going to take in a late round, and maybe you're going to be able to go ahead and use him sometimes as your RB2 or your flex during the bye weeks. But as far as those guys goes, I'm not really banking on a lot from them. The wide receivers, also not banking a lot from these guys. Crabtree is the only one. So
Come on.
Crabtree is the only one I'm expecting. I'm still not projecting over 1,000 yards for Crabtree. I got him at 950 yards, 92 catches, about 10 yards a catch. He'll get you – the thing that I like about Crabtree is I think he's going to get you touchdowns. I think he's going to get you 9 touchdowns, about 241 total points. So this is a guy who I believe in this offense will have wide receiver 1 upside. But Crabtree has only had 2 1,000-yard seasons his entire career. To me, I mean, granted, he hasn't had great quarterbacks his entire career, and now he has Joe Flacco. So
you don't like Derek Carr?
I said he hasn't had any great quarterbacks.
Do you like Derek Carr more than Joe Flacco?
Oh, yeah, of course I like him more than Joe Flacco. I mean, Joe Flacco, I don't even know why he's around. It just shows you how short the NFL is of quarterbacks. Yeah, but I think he's going to be the guy who you're going to get the most value out of in this offense or in drafts. He's the guy who him and Alex Collins are really the only people I'm going to target in my drafts, and that's only if I'm getting good value for them. I'm still hesitant about taking Alex Collins as my RB2, maybe as a flex, and Crabtree as a wide receiver too. I'm very hesitant about that. You have to evaluate your options, and you have to take the best talent available whenever you're doing this stuff. Then you got John Brown. John Brown, I would have projected him higher, but the injury risk is what concerns me about John Brown. He is slotted as their number 2 receiver right now on the depth chart, but I only have him catching 38 passes. He's going to be the guy who stretches the field for you. 2 touchdowns is what I have for him, and that's because of the injuries. I think he'd catch more, and Flacco does. One thing he does have is a strong arm. He doesn't have a lot else, but he has a strong arm, and John Brown's the guy to catch those passes. But
so spray and pray down the field.
Pretty much, he just can't catch, man, or he can't stay healthy, and Joe Flacco is. Well, he's Joe Flacco. So Willie Snead is their wide receiver 3 right now. They're retread a little bit, and he's going to get. I think he'll get more catches than John Brown, but he won't get the yards. But they're going to be guys who I'm not really. I probably won't draft them, to be honest with you. I don't know. I don't trust Joe Flacco as my quarterback.
The Baltimore Ravens. So far, from what I've heard, they're just stay away from that roster.
It's bad, and then so you have the tight end situation, right? So we do know Flacco will utilize tight ends. They've tried to find a tight end for years. I mean, Dennis Pitta has the hip issues, and that's why it ended up, him being off the roster. They've tried to use guys like Nick Boyle in the past, who's still on the team, but Hayden Hurst, they drafted him to be the guy. And at 25 years old, it's not like he's got a lot of time to develop. You better go ahead and get it. We were saying like that, but when guys come in the league at 21, 22, you got to start moving. And Hayden Hurst should be the guy who gets a lot of these catches. I got him projected actually at 52 catches for 540 yards and 3 touchdowns.
It's pretty good for a rookie tight end.
Yeah, it's not going to be bad. Those are my projections based on what how Flacco has utilized tight ends in the past and the numbers that they've received. But if he develops quickly, you could get these numbers and you could have enough upside to where he could finish the season as a tight end 1. You got to remember the floor for tight end 1 it's not that great. Like outside of your top 4 or 5 guys, finishing as a tight end 1 is not that difficult. And if there's one thing Flacco can do is he can throw the ball to the tight end too, other than having a really strong arm. So, yeah, I got him projected at 124 points. I think that he can do that, but I'm just going to have to pay attention. Like we saw the news where Mike Gesicki, they were talking about how he was running around the field and just kind of looking lost at practices. I haven't heard much about Hayden Hurst yet.
Well, that might be good then if you haven't heard.
Yeah, so, I mean, if he's like the rookie like Mike Gesicki where he's just like, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do, then you should probably stay away from him because not a lot of rookie tight ends have great seasons. That's been well documented. Evan Ingram and Gronk are really the exception to that rule.
Yeah, the only exception.
Yeah, and I don't see Hayden Hurst as being Rob Gronkowski. So.
No, there's much more Mike Gesicki's out there than there are Rob Gronkowski's.
Yeah, so if Hayden Hurst is running around looking lost as hell, don't.
You know what? Take the risk. Maybe he'll find himself in the regular season when he goes up against NFL defenses.
I can't wait till we start talking about the Dolphins. I want to bring that up again.
Well, actually, that's next week.
Yeah, all right. So that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah, I don't think there's much to add to that Baltimore roster, and for rightfully so. I mean, Alex Collins, maybe you take him more than Carlos Hyde. I don't know.
Yeah, I would take him over.
Yeah. But outside of Collins and Crabtree, really not much there in Baltimore. As far as maybe some streaming options, we already talked about Joe Flacco and what not to do there. That pretty much wraps it up for this episode of the Empty Wagon Fantasy Football Podcast. Brad or Josh, anything to add?
Have a great week, guys.
All right. And if Brad was still here, he would say from Scottsburg, Indiana, to also have a great week. And thanks for tuning in to the Empty Wagon Fantasy Football Podcast. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And that's all thanks to Blue Spade Productions at Blue Spade Pro on Twitter. If you want to check them out, see what they're all about. And then, I'm sure you already have this podcast, but hopefully you're using Podcast Republic app to get this Empty Wagon Fantasy Football podcast downloaded and listen to our great episodes here with Brad, Josh, and myself. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next week when we talk about the AFC East. Thanks again, y'all.